That's right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bridging the Gap here on the Jersey First TV network. And if you're tuning in on our new affiliate on NJ, you could check us out anytime over on NJ on demand, and also at Jersey First TV. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can click that little notification bell to get all of the latest Jersey First content, from Bridging the Gap to the Nader narrative to Real Talk with Fernando. You can check us out over on jerseyfirst.org, or you can sign up for our newsletter, and you can sign the pledge and get all of the information for what's going on over at Jersey First. But this is Bridging the Gap, and I'm AJ Malillo.
I am Steven Rombolo.
And we're back. We're back for another great episode. We're very excited to be back with you again. And Steven, how was your week? How you been? What have you been up to?
Listen, this week has been pretty milquetoast. I've done quite literally nothing exciting. Just been kind of kicking it at home, reading, going to the gym, eating a lot of food, getting some hours in at work. That's about it. Starting to get some plans moving for some future endeavors. As uncertain as that future might be. Once again, Rutgers Law, if you have any decisions, please let me know at any moment. It would make my life a whole lot easier. Truthfully, the law school thing has really been the biggest stressor on my life. It's a tremendous decision, tremendous amount of weight on my shoulders, and I've really been putting off getting some important things done at another institution because I'm kind of trying to will a Rutgers Law acceptance into existence. And it's we're crossing that threshold where it's like, I can't, pretend any longer. And I really need to get the ball rolling if I decide that's what's best for me moving forward. So a lot of big decisions to come in the future. And thinking about that and weighing through those options has really taken a lot of my mental capacity for the past week, because it's really getting real.
Sure. Yeah. You're getting close to a deadline here. And I think one thing about the show, if you've been listening, you know that at least this first few minutes, Steve and I are talking about the real stuff that's going on in our lives, independent of, whatever Jersey politics or stuff. And I think that that's an important part of the show. So in an era of seeing a bit of true friendship between Steven and I, and talk about this issue a little bit, I can say, I guess my advice to you is that you should just, while you wait to hear back from Rutgers, because ultimately, like, we'll see what that is, but you should really just try and get the ball moving on whatever that second plan is. If that's moving down to Florida, I think you should really just invest the time and energy into finding a place to stay down there and getting ready and everything set up to sign a lease, because ultimately that's what you're going to have to do. So I would say, like, get right to the point of putting your name on the dotted line for now, and then
Yeah.
And then if you hear back before then you hear back before then. What's the absolute worst case scenario is that you have to pull from a lease and you have to pay for like a month or two that you're not there. That's like absolute worst case scenario.
Yeah. Truthfully, what's really been the kicker is registration opened for this other university that I'm accepted to, and I've already paid my seat deposit there. I haven't filed any of my federal loan paperwork on their end, because I don't want them to send me money that I might not need to take out. Really watching the burden of student debt, that's been a big factor in all of this. And registration for these classes is open, and registration closes on July 7th. So that is my new artificial deadline to hear back from Rutgers, because if not, it is going to be a very quick and costly adventure to pack up my belongings, get loans, lease, and everything situated in under a month, to relocate to Orlando to go to law school for ideally a year down there, and then put myself in a position to be at someplace where I feel, more comfortable and better suited. So there's a lot of looming decisions. It's really killing me, and I'm trying so hard, but I don't want to get too close to the line that I accidentally cross it before I need to. But I understand that that's a line I'm going to have to cross at some point.
Yeah, I would just say your best bet is to literally get everything lined up as if you're going to Orlando, and then if you kind of have to pull back at the last minute, that might be the better strategy than like kind of being behind the ball on both ends
Yeah,
because waiting. It gets sort of
yeah,
like just do everything as if you're going to be in Orlando, and then you could figure it out the back end later if that changes. I think that's got to be the what you do because you're going to be more screwed the other way, I would imagine.
yeah. That's the reality that's kind of setting in on me. So I'm going to do my due diligence and get situated. I did a lot of the work on the front end. I have some really great options for leases that I periodically check on, and most of them are still available. So it's not like I'm going to be a homeless law student in Orlando.
Sure.
Like
I mean,
I
there's worse
have
places to be homeless.
I was yeah, in all fairness, sunny Orlando. Um, so I've done the due diligence. I have a good like cache of places that I can be. There's still some roommates that I get in the Facebook groups and through emails that are looking for people. So it's not like hope is totally lost, but I'm really just putting all my eggs in the Rutgers basket,
Sure.
trying to will it into existence. I fully believe in the power of word and positive affirmation and thought, and I'm positively affirming that it'll happen.
As fair as that is, and I agree with you, and I want that to happen for you. I think you have to bite the bullet and start prepping like it's not going to. It's better to
Yeah.
be prepared for for that and then not prepared at all. So
Failing to prepare is preparing to fail.
that's
It's
right.
kind of what I've been saying to myself recently, and it's
I
putting
think that's fair.
putting fire underneath me to get me up and moving. So quite contrastly, I would imagine. Um, you are like rock solid over there. You got a good regimen, a good schedule. How are
I mean,
things?
good's relative, right? Like, first of all, right now, the allergies just came out of nowhere and really started kicking my butt. So I'm apologize if you are watching and you're seeing me like scratch my face and my eyes all red. It's all allergies, I promise. Now, relative is that good schedule because I do work every day, Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30 at the DA's office, and I don't get paid for that, and it's an hour commute. So then I turn around and I work at least two shifts, if not three shifts, in the 2 days that are Saturday and Sunday, at a local restaurant. So I'm really grinding. So I guess you could say I have a rock solid schedule. I just don't have any free time at all. So I have very little. Um, so, but yeah, I mean, relatively speaking, I can't complain. I'm really enjoying my time at the district attorney's office, and I love a good service job, serving some tables and working on takeout stuff for at the restaurant I'm working at. Like I don't know, you know me, and I know this is a hot take, and I've said this, and people always say I'm crazy. I love the service industry jobs. I have so much fun at them. Yeah, they're hard work. Yeah, you're running around. Yeah, sometimes you're dealing with some crappy customers, but I just love it. I love dealing with the people. I love running around, feeling like I'm working all of
Me too.
the time. That's like the one thing about certain areas of law is that I feel like you sit behind a desk and you don't do anything. And to me, I feel like I wouldn't be doing any work. That's one thing I
Hmm.
really like about the DA's offices is that everybody's always running around. They're always all busy. It's like nobody ever has a second to breathe, and that's the kind of work environment I thrive in.
Me
Oh,
too.
you feel like you're drowning all the time? That put me there.
Perfect. You know what I call that? This is the word that's been buzzing around the store that I'm in charge of recently. I call it having a sense of urgency in anything and everything that you do, which is completely contrary to the entire discussion that we just had about my lackadaisical efforts and preparation for law school. There is no sense of urgency to move to Orlando, but everything else in my life, tremendous sense of urgency. And I think that is something that keeps you alive. It keeps you alert, keeps you on your toes. And if you're all three of those things, I think you have the full capacity to be an excellent worker
I
in
agree,
anything that you do.
Another thing that I really really appreciated, my boss at the restaurant said this, and he's a young guy, he's in his late 20s. He said you got to have, if it's, especially if you're working in some sort of office job, it's having a blue collar mentality and a white collar job. So it's like,
Mm,
just because you're working in a white collar job doesn't mean you shouldn't be moving and like getting things done all the time. And I really,
I like
that's,
that.
I liked that a lot. That really stuck with me. So like, even if you're like in an office doing white collar stuff, like have that blue collar work mentality, and I think it gets you a long way. And that's what a service industry job teaches you, or any other blue collar job, whether it's construction or whatever it may be.
I agree with that completely. That's a great little saying. I'm going to
Yeah,
take that into work tomorrow.
you take that and run. I'll give you that. Let you chew on it a little bit.
Yes.
It's like there's a quote from The Office. Um, he it's Andy goes into Michael's office and he says, uh, it's a line from a Bon Jovi song. He's like, "I'll be there for you. These 5 words, I swear to you." Right, and then like that's the
Hmm.
song, and then he goes, "That's a poem from JB Jovi. I want you to have it." So there you go.
Have
That's a
it.
quote from my boss. I want you to have
Thank you so much.
it.
Send my my thanks.
Yeah, I will. I will. But all right, Steve. It's late when we're recording this because that's what we've been doing because we're busy men and we record late because we care about the people and we want
It's
them to
true.
get some good content. And this week has been a little bit crazy, but I think there's an appropriate place to start. And it's a story that has captured the imagination, but also just like gripped us as a, I won't even say as a country, probably as a globe.
Yeah.
All eyeballs have been on this story, and we just today found out the unfortunate end of this story, which is dealing with the Ocean Gate submarine, which was going to check out the wreckage of the Titanic. Um, all week we've been hearing reports that the submarine has gone missing. We lost contact with it, and then there was talk about how they were running out of oxygen. They ran out of oxygen this morning, and so it was assumed that the passengers on it, once we found them, this was now sort of a search mission for remains and not a search mission or a saving mission for the people on it. But then we found out today that the submarine actually imploded because of the weight, uh, and the pressure from how far down in the ocean it is, and that, I mean, still very unfortunate. But looking at the alternative, um, luckily the passengers, the 5 people aboard the ship or the submarine, were uh, killed by the pressure, so they died in milliseconds. So if there is a silver lining to the awful tragedy that took place, it's that they didn't suffer and suffocate, like was originally thought. Now, some of the other things that come out about this story that I think are a little bit more more areas of talk. There's 2 things that I'll note that I think are important places to pick up a conversation. One of them, I'm just seeing reports now that apparently the Navy knew about this and heard that the implosion happened right around where all of the wreckage was found on Sunday, and it wasn't released until today, which is Thursday that we're recording this, that they knew about it on Sunday. And we kind of were played and pushed along as the public throughout the entire week. And this was the major story in the news headlines, even though we knew what happened on Sunday and it just wasn't released. So that's one thing that I think we could talk about. And there's some theories out there that maybe we could pick out, and I want to pick your brain on. Now, the other thing that has really troubled me this whole time, and maybe you could shed some light on it too. And I think it's important when you're talking about people of our generation. There's a lot of jokes on the internet about the whole tragedy, and I'm a free speech guy, and whatever you people handle tragedy in different ways. You want to crack a joke, you crack a joke. It is what it is. I just can't help but be bothered that the same people that are shouting, eat the rich and They're just a bunch of rich people. They paid a lot of money to be on this submarine. They're stupid. They're rich. They deserve what they got. Are the same people that you see that are clamoring for quote unquote human rights and people to be treated more fairly and equity and equality and all of these things. But then they say basically like these people got what they deserved and they deserve to be crushed in milliseconds as they explore because they're rich and they shouldn't have been on it anyway and they're stupid and blah blah blah. And I just think that that's really paradoxical and I think it's really gross behavior, and it's coming from people that are our age. And I will chalk it up to youth and uh, just kind of being dumb themselves and not seeing the oxymoronic ways of uh, their attitude. But it just really bothers me that the same people that try and claim that they're good and they care about the human race, they don't care when their fellow humans die just because they happen to be worth a lot of money. And they die a tragic death when they're just trying to have a once in a lifetime experience. It's like, do you have the same thought for the person who is, skydiving? That you don't have to be rich to skydive, but it's dangerous, and some people will tell you you're stupid for doing it. But it's still a tragedy when an accident happens and that person dies. No, so those are the two areas that I think we could pick up a discussion. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it: the Navy and then the more social aspects of it.
All right. So I think we have ourselves what I'm going to call a great old fashioned Stephen and AJ moment right now. Because to me, I'll say this before I say anything else. I've never been one to mince my words or opinions about things. And 110%, this is tragic. My thoughts go out to, the families, the victims, everybody involved in the situation. Tragedy, not negating that. Very sad story. A private company with a poorly built submarine that was riveted from the outside plummets 12,000 feet into the sea. It's full of a bunch of people who paid a bunch of money to go do something really stupid, and it implodes. And we have the militaries and the resources of 3 nations scouring the Atlantic Ocean, spending millions of taxpayer dollars. The burden of these rich people's fun time falls onto the American, Canadian, and French taxpayer. I have no sympathy for that. There was a migrant ship that was traveling from Libya to Italy last week. Hundreds of people are still presumed missing in the Mediterranean seas out there, and we are not spending that money to go save those people. But five rich people who did a real stupid thing for nothing other than a good time get all the nations, not even the nation, the world's attention. I think it's really foolish. And if you want to talk about like equity and caring for your fellow human, I care a lot more just from a utilitarian standpoint. I'd rather that money be spent on trying to find the hundreds of people that were lost in that shipwreck a week ago than the 5 that we know where they went, we know where they were going, they know what they got themselves into, and it's a risk that you take. I think the risk management on that trip was poor. I think that if you laid that out to anybody with a reasonably sound mind, you said you're going to get in this tiny steel tube that's made of different materials. It was constructed differently than any submarine that's ever been constructed before, and submarine experts have been touting that all over the news about how unsafe this thing was. Riveted from the outside, so you could not even get out if you wanted to. And it was controlled with an old GameCube controller. It was a mess waiting to happen. I don't know why anybody's surprised that it ended the way that it did in a tragedy. I don't know why anybody is trying to make excuses or come up with justifications for this. I think it's foolish. I think that if you're going to go ahead and you're going to spend $250,000 and get in a steel tube and shoot yourself down to the most inhospitable place for humans, more humans have walked on the moon than have been on the sea floor at those depths. So it's not a safe place. It's not a well acclimated, suited place for humans to be. And I can't sit here and act like I'm surprised that these people went down there and imploded when there's almost 17 17,000 ton, or it's like 17,000 pounds of pressure per square inch when you reach a certain point, and this thing is made of carbon fiber. Are you joking me? Are you joking? It is a
Yeah,
ridiculous notion. So I have sympathy for the fact that these individuals lost their lives. Aside from that, this is a ridiculous story. It's a waste of the taxpayer money. It is an absolute waste of the world's attention. And I think that we were duped to follow this non-story for a whole week, and why the military knew this on Sunday and decided to keep it from us when we have things coming out, like Hunter Biden, getting into this indictment with the DOJ that should have been just as big of news as when Trump got indicted, but we care about, five rich people that decided to plummet to the bottom of the ocean. Make that make sense to me.
that's okay. So I was going to say now, I think a lot of what you said is fair, and I don't necessarily disagree with it. Right? Like, it was stupid. It was poorly constructed. It was all of the things that you said. Like, absolutely. You look at it from not even an expert looking at it. Like, you just show me the plan, and I'm like, this isn't a good idea, right? Like, I gotcha. I agree with that completely. And again, and also, we didn't have to spend millions of taxpayer dollars because we knew what happened on Sunday.
Correct.
And we didn't have to spend a news cycle on what is going on, why are these people missing, because we knew about it on Sunday. Now I
Correct.
agree again, why is this even like why did we take so long? Why wasn't it allowed to be released until today? And I think the leading theory that it was to help suppress the story of the sitting president's son being federally indicted isn't that outlandish of a theory. My problem is a couple of things. Okay, take out the we don't know what's going, like, take out the that we actually know what's going on, and the media is
Mhm.
helping to this sort of cover up this story that we know what's going on in. Um, to vilify people for being attached to, like, where are these people and we have to help find them, and like, I'm trying to find the best way to phrase this. If it wasn't five rich people that were doing this, say, and it was five
Mhm.
explorers, I say, like, they were just, it was a company that was doing an expedition, right? And they weren't rich people that paid, right?
Mhm.
Um, the same people that are saying, like, like, whatever, I don't care because they're rich, would care about the story. And they only don't care about the story because people paid a lot of money to go on the ship. And I think that that is where I have this issue, morally speaking, because
So,
you, because it's not that you don't care about like, you don't care about the people because you're jealous of the people because they're rich and they were
mhm.
able to spend the money to go on the trip. And that's what bothers me. It's you don't care about human beings. You just don't like rich people.
so,
And like, that's
so,
where my line is.
so here's how I square that in my head. If I'm alive in the 60s, right, and I know that Neil Armstrong is taking this mission to go to the moon, he is a pioneer of, like, humanity, right? He is traversing into a new terrain. Like, go off. You're doing that in the name of something tremendous. If you're Jeff Bezos and you have a cool $100 billion sitting around and you want to shoot yourself into space for fun times, I don't really care what happens to you. That's my perspective on it. So if you're if you've dedicated your life and this is your goal and this is what you do and you care about advancing, the exploration, the human survival, understanding what this environment is like, and contributing to a greater society, a greater body of knowledge, I am all there. It is a valiant effort. If you have $250,000 laying around and you just want to sink to the bottom of the ocean for fun and it implodes, I don't know what to tell you. You should have stayed on land. You had no reason to be down there to begin with. It was a
Yeah.
good time for you. And my problem is that it's the exploitation of these really incredible and really new, inhospitable, like, environments to make them seem like they're this fun, awesome, cozy, like, oh, you got a lot of money, you want to do something cool. Go see this. And that's not what it is. The bottom of the ocean is not made for humans. Space is not made for humans. To get to these places takes extreme amounts of technology, effort, decades of studying and people's hard work. And to just pimp it out as it's this lavish, like, I have money so I can do this thing, I think is an exploitation and completely degrades the work and all of the scientific and collective knowledge value that comes from traveling to these places. James Cameron goes down in a sub because he has a legitimate vested interest in preserving the history of the Titanic. He's self-funded these things. Like, he assumes that risk himself. He doesn't offer it to anybody. He knows what he's getting into, and he does it for some sort of passion, some sort of contribution. These are just people that wanted to go see the Titanic. That's crazy. That
So,
is a completely different page, and I have no sympathy whatsoever. Jeff
so
Bezos can launch himself into space all he wants, but you're not doing anything to help any but yourself and having a good time.
So
That's
here's
stupid.
here's maybe where I think I disagree with that assessment. It's this idea. We are entering, whether we realize it or not, we're entering a, I'll say, a new frontier of commercial exploration when it comes to space, when it comes to apparently going under the sea now, right? So it's like the SpaceX's, the Jeff Bezos's, right? They are
Blue Origin.
entering, right, Blue Origin, right? They are entering into commercialization of these explorations, right? And I think the best way to frame it is like the beginning of the commercialization of flight, right? The beginning of the airplane travel. Because the idea, if you talk to the people at the head of, especially because you're analogizing it with space travel, at the head of the space travel, you're Elon Musk's, right? The idea is eventually someday to be an interplanetary species that we will be traveling back and forth throughout space and throughout the solar system, right? That is the eventual goal. And these are the pioneers in that area. Now, I think it's important to also be a pioneers towards what's going on Earth also, right? Like like you said, more people have walked on the moon than have been to the bottom of the ocean. We know more about space than we know about our own ocean, right? So more exploration of the ocean floor and stuff I don't think is a terrible thing. And so the commercialization of that exploration is what we're starting to see from the beginning. And so I think that these people are also pioneers. And obviously it's going to start off with very, very wealthy people being the only people to do it because it costs a lot of money to do. So I think you might be discounting that as well. Like, yeah, they're very wealthy and they're doing this. But at one point, the middle class person couldn't get a $12 Spirit Airlines flight. But commercialization happened and now they can. And it was
But
just to pretend that air travel in the beginning wasn't super, super dangerous and people probably didn't walk around saying you're an idiot for getting on a plane when a plane would crash. Like, obviously that happened.
yeah, that's I'm with you there. My issue is I think they're commercializing something that has no utility.
Exploration?
You are not exploring anything that other people haven't seen when you get launched into the atmosphere to float around in the tube of a rocket
Well,
for a
this is
few
the
minutes.
start of it.
You're not exploring anything that people haven't seen when you go to the Titanic. Also, a plane, the utility from the plane, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. We are traveling great distances at tremendous speeds, and it's interconnected the globe. Like, I think the plane has done that. I don't think we are anywhere near. I don't think, truthfully, in our generation, that we will be anywhere near an actual utilitarian function, like a utility function of space and or ocean exploration. So to commercialize it and make money off of it, I have a tremendous ethical issue with. You are
I
quite
don't know if it.
literally launching people into the unknown above and the unknown below. And this circles back to my original point. If you are okay with paying a large chunk of change to get shot in a fireball or sunk in a metal tube into something that we have no idea what is going to happen when you get there, Go off, that's on you, but don't paint it as if you're some explorer who cares about data, who cares about research, who cares about advancing the collective knowledge of those things. You're doing it because you can afford to do it, you have the money, and you think it'd be a cool story to tell your friends at your next dinner. Oh, I saw the Titanic. How many people get to see the Titanic? I think
Yeah.
it's weird that there is this like attitude about collecting these like tremendous moments and opportunities and using them as like clout tokens for really rich people. That's what disgusts me.
See,
Absolutely disgusts me.
I don't know if I agree that it's that binary. Um, it's like somebody climbing Mount Everest. Is it just because they want to tell the story about the time they climbed Mount Everest, or is it because they want to do something that's remarkable that will change how they view the world and how they will view life and humanity as a whole? And maybe the better um analogy is that of those people going into space and seeing the world from above than going down to see the Titanic, although this is just a start towards seeing what's at the bottom of the ocean and that being available to more people. And I would say I agree. Like I'm not sure in our generation that we see the fruits of these endeavors, but I just I think you're discounting that it has to start somewhere, and it's still a tragedy that this happens. And like what if one of those five tickets wasn't a $250,000 ticket? It was like, okay, there's five seats here. Four people are going to pay $250,000, and we're going to raffle one off to whomever wants it. And you could sign up for the raffle, kind of like the Challenger, where the teacher got on it and the Challenger exploded, and unfortunately the teacher perished with that tragedy, right? So now all of a sudden, like, we should feel bad for that person. Well, they because they're not rich, because they didn't pay for it, they just signed up for it and they were picked in the lottery, right? No, it would just be just as tragic, no more no less.
It would be just as tragic, but I think similar to the Challenger tragedy that you mentioned there, it's like these seem like really cheeky PR stunts to make these things seem more palatable to the people that they're trying to commercialize. And as with the Challenger, as with Ocean Gate, doesn't really go well when we don't have all of our things put together, when the math is not sound, when we are not certain about the physics and the science and all of the risk factors. And we did it a few times. We think we have the idea, and now we can start making a quick buck off of it. Disgusts me. We are like innocent people who did not have any good reason to go and do this, lost their lives. And that is a tragedy. But there is no reason that somebody needs to get in a little metal tube and sink to the bottom of the ocean at this day and age, or get in a little metal tube and hang out with Jeff Bezos and get launched into the stratosphere for no good reason. That's a really
So
stupid way to have a fun time. And it nothing about it is fun. We are not there. We are not there.
yeah, yeah, I agree that we're not there yet, and that's why I'm not going to be one person to sign up for these things. But I think where we disagree is that it has to start somewhere, and I just think we are discounting in a lot of ways, especially the people of our generation, are discounting the level of this tragedy just because we have some sort of notion that the rich people on it don't deserve our sympathy as much. And I think that that's where I that's what really bothers me about it. It's like I don't care who's on that ship. It's a tragedy, and five people lost their lives, and and we're going to be at a point in sometime in the not so distant future, um that more and more people are going to that this door is going to be open to more and more people, and it has to be safer. I agree with you. It has to We have to get the kinks out, and I feel like that's a really callous way to say it, but like we have to make sure that if it's going to continue, it will continue in a safer way. And I feel like there's a discount there as well. That it's not like these people aren't trying to do something that will be remarkable and will be uh, a big step into the human exploration of the human experience.
I could give you a million reasons as to why I think that I can square those issues. I think for a lot of people, it's the fact that you had this exuberant, however you say the word, amount of wealth. And like I said, for some people, things like that are just a story. I did it because I could. And that is a gross way to spend your money. Money that
The
a lot of
hint,
these people believe is unethically acquired anyway. So the
no,
crowd that you have this gripe with is never going to be resolved because to those people the existence of a billionaire is unethical of itself. So any way they
right.
choose to spend their money is unethical. And if they die spending their unethical money in an unethical way, it's an unethical life that was lost, and that person will never give you their sympathy for the loss of that life. So there's
Sure,
really
and I
no
think that's a
way
really shallow
to square that.
morality also. I think that's a really shallow morality that doesn't care about
I
humans. It cares more about money and power and wealth, and I think that they try and pretend that they
those
don't, but they do.
But those same people
And
would argue to you that the ones who perished also shared that same belief where it is about the money and it is about these things. And they are valuing the same things that those who lost their lives valued, just
yeah, and I think
differently.
that that value system is wrong. And also it's like the rich people that were on the Hindenburg and that crashed and burned, and now we don't have zeppelins anymore, right? But but it was rich people on that, but as an immense tragedy in the course of human travel and exploration, right? And it changed travel and exploration because the Hindenburg crashed in such a tragic way, right? So I just I I think that this is right up there with things like the Hindenburg and the Titanic and the Challenger, that we are discounting it as some sort of stupid, you know, like stupid excuse to just bash rich people, and I just it that just really bothers me. Um, that just really it does. It bothers me a lot, and I don't think that there's going to be much agreement between you and I on this, and that's well and good.
No,
Um, I
not the
just think that
first time,
others,
not the last.
right, right. But I think the next story, which we'll cover quickly here, will be a place of more agreement, and I think
Yeah,
that that's why it'll be a bit of a shorter discussion. So,
I think so.
Chris Smith, your representative over there
Whoop
in
whoop.
NJ's fourth, uh, has made it official that a government accountability office has agreed with a letter written by Chris Smith along with um, Jeff Van Drew, who's NJ's second
Cape May County down
representative.
there.
That's Representative Andy Harris of Maryland, and the House Natural Resources Committee Chair Bruce Westerman of Arkansas all wrote a letter to get the Government Accountability Office to launch an investigation on the impacts, of the New Jersey offshore wind development program. They wanted to look on what's going on with the environment, the fishing industry, the military operations, and the navigational safety, and more. Here's a quote from Chris Smith. This aggressive independent investigation into the ocean altering impacts of the 3,400 offshore wind turbines slated for the Jersey Shore will help address the wide ranging questions and concerns that the Biden administration and Governor Murphy continue to dismiss as they plow full steam ahead with the unprecedented offshore wind industrialization of our shore. It is it is absolutely crucial that New Jersey residents understand all the impacts of the offshore wind projects, which will permanently transform our marine environment and seascape and could be put our tourism drive economy at grave risk before it's too late. Um, Now, the GAO study will be a second study after the Bureau of um, the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management did a study on the ocean wind and offshore farms in May of 2023. So this will be a second study, and it's unclear if they'll find anything more. But the most telling thing that I saw from this study, and it talks about how all of the plans, and there was like four different alternative plans to the one that was put into place, um, along with the one that was put in place, and they all had they all ranked on minor to major impacts on commercial fisheries, and minor to major, or minor to moderate on for hire recreational fishing, which is a big industry in New Jersey, obviously. And the other thing that I noticed that they had major impacts on were on the North American right whale populations. Every single one of the plans had that. And if we remember a few months back, the whales that were washing up on the shore were humpbacks and right whales, which is already an endangered species, or at least a protected species that are their numbers are very, very low. And there's a clear impact on that type of whale. So pretty much exactly what the Bureau's investigation said would have major impacts, or having major impacts on. And we'll see what the GAO does or finds if they find anything different. But what's striking to me is that there were concerns with these, and those concerns are being met, and it's almost like they don't really care, uh, because it's it's an agenda check.
Yeah. So few things about this. I'm interested to see what the GAO comes up with. I think that'll be very telling. I until recently hadn't even heard of the study that you just discussed, so I think this one's going to garner a little bit more attention. I know nothing about the operations of the organization that you had mentioned, also, but the GAO I know has been involved in some pretty big investigations of decent caliber. So I expect to have like really conclusive and thorough reports coming out about this information. So I'm certainly looking forward to that, and I think they're the right people to have on the job. What I'm having a hard time with is the way that they're categorizing this issue. So there was talk about the company that's basically backing these offshore wind farms, Ørsted, and they're claiming them to be this like greedy foreign energy company. And important to note is, I think it was, I want to say maybe last week. Yeah, last week in London, the vice president of Ørsted had mentioned that they were, prepared to walk away from these wind projects. They did insist that the first one, so offshore wind one, that first wind farm, I don't know the semantics of where it's located necessarily, but the first project that they're committed to will be seen through. Anything else after that, they're not as feverishly committed to, and they signaled that they need to do some sort of recalibrating. They want to make sure. I think the term that they used was adjustments. But what is this in response to? Some people are alleging that it's in response to these mass animal deaths. Some people are alleging that it's a capital issue. And if it's a capital issue, then Murphy signed these laws that are mandating these energy things. And is a government bailout of this industry gonna be a few years down the pipe, and are New Jersey taxpayers gonna have to foot the bill for a politically motivated green energy project? I don't know if that's the case. What's interesting, I think, is I have some very reliable information from some people who are involved in the subject matter, and they reaffirm that like the goals of these companies and this initiative to have all this offshore wind it's not necessarily money driven. It's value driven. So they're valuing their values as opposed to valuing the monetary things. And I think if you take a look into what Ørsted's company ethos is, and the things that they believe, and what their mission is, and what they're committed to, it really is delivering sustainable energy at low cost in really effective ways. And if they're finding out and they're seeing that these projects don't align with that, I think that's pretty telling as well. So there's a lot of players here, and not to mention the tremendous economic implications for this. Murphy wants to have us basically 100% renewable energy by 2035. So we're like 12 years out from this deadline, and we can't even get these projects off of the ground floor without controversy. So there's so many implications to these big projects, these investigations that are coming down the pipe now. Awesome. What do we have right here?
Yeah, this is the map of where that Ocean Wind 1 offshore wind farm
Okay.
is going to be. So that's just the map of the area. So it's, if you could see, it's right. It's Atlantic County to Ocean County.
I'll say, can you blow it up a tiny bit more?
I can. How's that? Is
Oh,
that better for
perfect.
on your end?
Yeah,
So for those that are just listening, yeah, if you look, it's the project spans from the most southern tip of um, Atlantic County up to probably what's that, Mid Ocean County there,
yeah,
and it's going to be fairly far out into the Atlantic Ocean, um, and yeah, but looking like other plans are up and down the Jersey coast. So if you want to check out over in video, you could see the map for yourself. But yeah, the plan is to pretty much put it up and down the Jersey coast at some point.
yeah. And so I just want to double back. I think there's a lot of players involved here. So we have the Murphy administration, we have the Biden administration, we have the GAO, we have the, I'm going to mess it up. I think it's the BEMO.
Uh, B the Let me get the acronym exactly correct. The BOEM, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, the BOEM,
So,
the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management.
okay. So you have the BOEM, you have the GOA, you have Murphy, you have Biden, you have the taxpayers, you have Orsted, you have so many other climate regulators and people that need to get jobs to go and build these things and make sure they function, and regulators involving the EPA and where we can construct these things, right? There are so many moving parts involved in this initiative. The notion that this is going to be completed, in just over a decade, I think is a little ridiculous, considering, like I said, we have not even gotten off the ground floor and there's so much controversy and there's these requests to put it on pause because we don't know what is happening with regard to things like maritime safety, how it's going to affect travel. The East Coast has been a travel hub, an economic travel hub for
Since
centuries.
200, since we founded the nation, since before we founded the nation, since colonists came to the
So
New World.
so there is lots of implications here, and I think that they should be treated every step of the way. Anytime that there is a concern, a question, whatever it might be, with some degree of seriousness. And I think that what Chris Smith has accomplished here by getting the GOA to conduct this investigation is ultimately going to prove to be a good thing. Because at the end of the day, if they run this investigation, they say, you know what, this is all clear. We checked everything out. There's going to be no adverse effects, really adverse effects. Let it roll. Then you know what? Safe to say that we did it and we have that in our back pocket in case something happens. And if, the contrary happens and they come back with this report and they say, you know what, this is actually causing a lot of issues. This is a big problem. I would rather know that now before we spend money and get these things underway before it's too late to turn back around and wish we had never done it.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything said. I would just note that it seems like the first investigation from the BOEM, um, it, they were right. Like, we've already seen these impacts, and the Murphy administration still refuses to say that the impacts are valid. Right? We had tens of whales wash ashore of an endangered or protected species of whale that we said would specifically be harmed by this project. We're seeing it already. It's like, we know the effects. They've come true. So stop pretending like they have nothing to do with each other. Stop pretending and turning a blind eye to the effects, because we know what's going on. We've seen it. And that's what really bothers me. It's like, whatever the GAO finds, whatever, and I'm not even attacking the company that's doing it. I'm sure they're doing it for fine motives, and I mean, it's a company, it's for profit company, so like obviously one of the motives is going to be to make money. But regardless, like that doesn't even really bother me. What bothers me is that the government, who is supposed to be the public interest, really only cares about I don't know, maybe a 2024 presidential run or maybe a 2028 presidential run, and to look at this thing on your record, right?
And
Um,
the
and
title of
and
greenest
damn,
governor.
right, damn the consequences. Greenest governor and kill even if all the whales die in the process, right? Like, yeah, okay, spare me. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's mind boggling.
Hey Jay, you better get on the phone right now and trademark that line and put that on a T-shirt for when Murphy runs, because that was gold right there, off the fly. I got to give you that was a great little
We're
that was a
recording this
great
is almost
little
midnight,
one-liner.
okay?
That was a great little one-liner you just ripped off right there.
And you know what?
Now,
I think it's an appropriate place to end for me. I'll let you get the last word. I'll let
I'll
you close this out here.
I'll say this much: everything that you said, I'm with you. Make sure that we are doing the right thing for the right reasons, and that the wrong things aren't going to happen. I think by the GOA or GAO taking the helm right now, leading this investigation and addressing these concerns while this is still, a seedling of a project is exactly the right thing to be doing. And I think that everybody should kind of hold their breath, not get ahead of themselves, and let this agency do the investigative work that needs to be done before we get too far gone. Because, like you said, the things that people have been claiming will be these adverse effects of this project, we've witnessed with our own eyes. We've talked about it many times ourselves on this show. And so there is validity to these claims. And another independent agency has already confirmed this. So we have a unique opportunity now to double down and find out a little bit more about what's happening and what it looks like the effects of this project are going to be, so we can make collectively a sound decision moving forward, not only about our energy and economic future, but just as a tax paying body, to make sure that we're spending money in the right places on the right things and doing the right things for the environment around us. Because, like you said, you don't want to be the greenest governor, even if all the whales are dead.
Look, I think that's an appropriate place to end it because I think we're ending on a mantra of bridging the gap, and that's just trying to figure out how to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And you know, whatever the right thing may be, it's best found in discussion and not shutting out because you want your titles and your accolades. But anyway, for another episode of Bridging the Gap and Jersey First as an organization and Jersey First TV and on NJ, I'm AJ Malillo.
I'm Steven Rambola.
And we hope you have a wonderful week and we will catch y'all next week. See ya.